Hello everyone in the chess world. Today I wanted to show you this Queen's Gambit accepted and what happens when black wants tries to keep the extra pawn. And while in a way that it will seem playable. For example, to show you what I'm talking about, well, the most known order is to play c4 and after pawn takes. While most people go knight on f3 here, which is a good move, and I'm going to show you this position, but well, we all know that after e3, black could not try and hold on to this pawn because if b5 we have a4. This is typical method, and after c6 we can take it. Black cannot recapture because queen on f3. We trap the rook on a8. This really no trick. However, well, as I showed you before, in this position, I think we see much more often knight on f3, like instead of e3, knight on f3. This order or my move order, which is after d4 and d5. Well, quite often, instead of c4, I just play knight on f3. It might depend on the move for the game. For example, you might want to prevent the all-being counter gambit or lure black into lines like this kind of line, maybe. I mean, there are a lot of reasons, but the result is usually the same. After knight on f3, and let's say knight on f6, e4, pawn takes, we have similar position as before, and after e3, and with this knight on f6, well, b5, it's a playable move, and it's usually not shown in this version in here because we always know what the argument for white is. Everyone says, well, a4, this is the correct move. Of course, they cannot hold on with that. With a6, we'll just take it, and this is really known. We have the file, and of course that is why black always go for c6, and then b3, undermining the pawn chain. And yeah, it's quite known. Now the idea is if they take, you'll always take recapture the other way around. If they take the a pawn, we'll capture here, putting a pawn on the center, controlling the center, and then eventually recovering this pawn right in here. And the other way around, if they play, pawn takes in here, well, first you capture here. And now, yeah, you can exchange these pawns. This pawn is doomed. Yeah, it's a normal procedure, but sometimes you gotta see the exact move order and all the possibilities that are here for black. Because here, for example, okay, I'm going to show you c6 because this is what the video is about. I want to show you how to play if black insists on keeping the extra pawn. But I have to tell you, the main move in here is b4. Just passing by and already giving back the pawn. After bishop takes e4 and e6, usually we see castles. Well, bishop on e7. Now you can see that this knight on b1 goes to d2. This is a good square. We're looking at b3 and c4, useful squares. I mean, look at the c4 square for the future for our knight. No b pawn, no d pawn to control this square. So it's, I don't know, bishop b7, it is fine. All theory, queen e2, castles e4, c5. After e4, with black usually reacts with c5, and we can even play a5 first, just threatening a6. So we're winning a tempo, forcing black to play a6 anyway, and I don't know, e5, knight d5, knight b3. Black is always better in these positions. It's hard to play for black. There is some attack. It's a good activity, a piece activity for white. But this is basically the main move. So we want to see what happens if black holds on to that pawn. Well, once again, as we said, we will play b3. But black, as they won't make any capture. They know that we will recapture the other way around and get the advantage. So the two moves that you have to analyze here are, well, the most logical one is e6. And I don't know. Once again, since we're talking about black trying to hold on to that pawn, why not offer a move that, yeah, looks ridiculous, bishop on e6. The bishop is blocking the e pawn, but okay, maybe black will one day try to develop like this. I don't know. And yes, maybe at any point we'll have a knight on g5 hitting this bishop. Looks really bad, but we have to look at this move because it is trying simply to hold on to the extra material. So let us go for first for this e6, the most natural move. And this introduces always a bishop on before check intermediate move. After no matter which move we played. So this is the order. I mean, e6 is the natural move. It's the most solid one, and it introduces something. So it's good to know how to proceed in some particular line. So we will go 8 takes b5 in here. So I think black will just recapture there. Already one moment to see what will happen if black decided to include this bishop on before check is interesting, because after bishop on d2, bishop takes on d2 check, makes sense, because we're thinking if we make, let us say, the natural recapture, queen takes on d2, well, at least c takes on b3 makes some sense now, right? Not in a position like this, because we can always recapture like this or like this. But in this particular position, well, at least it takes on b3. Now the queen is not controlling b3 anymore, and it's blocking the knight from going for, it's not so much, but it makes sense. So a little thing to know is that here you will simply play knight b takes on d2, because if c3, which might be like justification for black, well, simply knight on b1, you go back, then you recover on c3, and you're totally fine. It's curious, this line, bishop check and stuff. That is why I think black will just recapture on b5. We will take it there. I mean, recover the pawn in this way. This is quite known. So I'll follow up a little bit more of natural development for both. Bishop on e7, they both castle. Knight bd2 a5, bishop on e3. So as I said before, this is quite typical. So black is at least playing with the passed a pawn. They're playing for that a little bit. It's not bad. Of course, we have this 5 against 4 on the center. The possibility of playing d5 or e5, e4, e5, e4, d5. It's aggressive. White is slightly better, but it's a normal, understandable procedure. So yeah, here we definitely get an advantage, and I will recommend this line. But this is decent played for black, showing, among other stuff, that, well, it is possible to play to try and hold the pawn for black. As you see in this case, they'll eventually give it back anyway, but at least with particular idea, it is possible. So let's break out that taboo that is, in any position like this, you shouldn't play b5. Well, here we're playing b5, and already ends e6, and in this line with e6, we got to a decent position for black. Well, last line that I wanted to show you, bishop on e6. I mean, yeah, what can I say? It looks really bad, but he has an idea. After a takes b5, once again, c takes b5, taking first on b3. Yeah, well, it makes sense, right? We have a bishop on e6, but I think we should even just play bishop on b2. The problem for black is how to continue if they, once again, the e pawn is blocked by the bishop, so they'll have to develop with fianchetto in this bishop and then castles. So let's say g6, we play natural moves, and, well, now if bishop on g7, we get right in here, and if h6, we can go back and then take it on b3. So yeah, there's not much kind of working for black. This position already looks great for us, right? Bishop g4, and now whatever, f3 or queen on d2. I think they're both leaving. It's really, really good. This is no problem. So going back here, c takes b5, b takes e4. Well, once again, there are options for black. They can recapture with both the pawn and the bishop, but none of them seem good enough. I think naturally we'll think about recapturing with the bishop. This way we want to say, okay, at least I'm giving up the bad bishop for white's good bishop. Castles, knight bd7, let us say. I mean, the pawn is eventually falling. Like queen on e4 is already a good move for white. And you wouldn't be able to play queen c7 because knight on c3, and now we're even here on knight on b5. So yeah, once again, this will be similar to the other position. Black will get this ending with, at least they'll play with the passed a pawn, but white is better. And once again, we're gonna have bishop. Here black is kind of really behind on development, so we might think about that stronger bishop on e3 in such positions, even before trying to recover the pawn, maybe like this. White's always better. Last line maybe in here, let us, since bishop takes on c4 didn't work as well as we might have thought, for black. Okay, let us try recapturing with the pawn. Knight on c3 once again. I mean, we could always play something like this. It's obviously possible. But I like this. Just play knight on c3, develop it. The pawn should be doomed. Once again, we have these ideas of knight on g5 someday. Let us say knight b7. Once again, this queen on a4. I think even the pin on d7 it's more valuable now that, well, black is some tempos away from castling, at least 3 tempos away minimum from castling. So let us say, I mean, even here, there's a problem in here for black, because I don't know, let us say if you go g6, I mean, this move is already too strong, right? Because now you go to d5, I can blow him up and take it on c4. If a6 to prevent that, maybe we can just switch to e4, going for d5, e5. Black doesn't have time to do this innocent looking moves. It's a luxury. Maybe 95 is the correct move in here. And we can exchange, and knight on e5. We're taking advantage of finally of the pin. Looks like after e6, natural play for black, but e4, this is a little surprise. This computer showed me this move. A little surprise. It's pretty strong. After bishop takes on e4, now we take it on c4. And I mean, we're about, you have to prevent bishop on b5, otherwise it's all over. So I guess a6 has to be played. Well, initially I will even look at something like this anyway, because the rook, I actually know, yeah, that is a detail. The rook on a8 is still protected twice. So we don't have tricks like bishop on b5, but just castles. And I think, yeah, well, we continue with the pin. I don't know how black is going to be able to free themselves from that. Maybe some rook on a7, because hey, we need to play castles one day, and this one is hanging. This bishop is not coming back to the defense. This might be, this is probably already winning for white. So okay, once again, in case you're interested in playing this with black, well, really, bishop on e6, I think in general terms is too risky. You could go just for the e6 line. So yeah, I think that in general we established that white will, you know, in a mathematical way maybe get an advantage. Yeah, it's true. But the idea of, you know, after e3 playing b5, well, it's at least not a forbidden move. It's a playable move for black. Of course, I don't play this with black. The idea is to, you know, give you the advice of what to play with white to get an advantage. But it's good to break up some dogmas, you know, thinking like it's never playable. b5 is always a bad move because of this typical method of undermining the pawn chain. Well, the method is known and it's correct, yes. But it's not so decisive, let us say. So thanks a lot for watching. I will see you next time. Remember always to like, comment, share, and subscribe. Yeah, see ya.